views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren Jaime, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough as well as across New York City. Coming up on today's show, we go front and center discussing unemployment and underemployment among people with disabilities. Then afterwards, we'll discuss how the Salvation Army is supporting early learning development with experienced care. Then we'll talk about this year's Run the Bronx. We'll have more details a little later on in the show. Then also, we'll discuss how inflation is impacting the prices of food and how it's actually affecting the community. You don't want to miss that segment. Then finally, with Earth Day approaching, we'll learn some sustainability tips that are coming from a nation's premier chef. So we got a good show coming for you. Stay tuned because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. And hello, everyone. I'm Daren Jaime, and you are watching Open. We thank you for joining us. Open is a live program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. We also want to welcome our viewers on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on the MNN channel. Now, you can stay connected to us on our social media platforms at BronxNet TV. If you want to find out more about us, don't hesitate to visit our website at bronxnet.org. Well, some things have been going on throughout the course of the past week in New York City. We'll take you through some of them with our Bronx Updates. We start off with community news by way of housing. CASA and residents of the Bronx gathered in front of the Bronx Housing Civil Court to show support for those facing eviction and inform New Yorkers that they're there for them. Our BronxNet reporter, Anna Garcia, brings us the story.
Upwards of 50 people, some carrying placards, were outside the Bronx Housing Court railing in support of renters impacted by COVID-19.
We've all had difficulties. The landlady, she just wants her money, and we've had very serious repair issues. Yeah. We have rodent and cockroach infestations, the whole building. Right. And it's been there since I moved in 8 years ago.
That's where Community Action for Safe Apartment comes in, also known as CASA, based in the Bronx. They were responsible in May in seeing the mayor approve right to counsel to every zip code, not just a few, around the city whose incomes qualify, allowing New Yorkers to get free legal counsel.
The Bronx is being gentrified, as you can see, by the South Bronx. So now that they're pushing out the residents, the low-income residents, they're moving north. They have nowhere to go. They're in the streets. They're trying to kick people out left and right.
Joanne Grill, a CASA leader who doesn't fall into that category, has neighbors who do, and is here to make sure that all Bronx tenants know what is available to them, as an estimated 200,000 citywide have cases pending in the housing court, with 40% of that number from the Bronx. Also, there was Randy Diller, another CASA leader who about a decade ago faced similar circumstances as a father caring for his children who was close to losing his apartment. On this day, he's here to empower those facing the same circumstances.
Became a CASA leader and then got with the right to counsel to help fight for tenants who don't have a lawyer that goes in front of a judge. We feel that if you can have a lawyer in criminal court, you should have a lawyer in housing court to be able to save your family.
But too many are not getting that representation, and not a county share is causing decisions to be made hastily, advisedly affecting tenants.
The tenants of the Bronx are protesting how fast the court is trying to move eviction cases along, because every tenant has the right to a free attorney, but right now those attorneys and their legal service providers don't have the capacity to take on the enormous volume of cases in housing court.
CASA's right to counsel steering committee is also pushing to see the legislation approved statewide. For more information on right to counsel, you can visit their website at newsettlement.org/CASA. From BronxNet, this is Ana Garcia.
And thank you, Anna. That is all the time we have for our Bronx updates. We want you to stay connected to us because guess what? We do have more show. Open continues coming up right after this.
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC.
And welcome back. The Center for Urban Future recently released a report showing that nearly 17% of working-age New Yorkers with a disability were unemployed in the year 2021. Now, that high unemployment rate has persisted for much of the past 2 years, even as the unemployment rate for New Yorkers with a disability has fallen since the summer of 2020. Now, joining us now and sharing more details, we're pleased to have Eli Dvorkin, who is the Editorial and Policy Director of the Center for Urban Future, who breaks it down for us right now.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be back.
Listen, when we talk about these numbers, obviously a little bit concerning. And in particular, as I wanted to talk about, is that up from 7.4%, we're at 17%. Any particular reason why we can see these numbers continue to rise?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we've seen this time and again in times of economic crisis, where New Yorkers with disabilities are often the first to lose employment when the economy starts to shake, and they are frequently the last to be rehired, even as the economy picks back up. And unfortunately, we've seen this in the past. We saw this in during the Great Recession. We saw this back in the 70s, and we're seeing it again today.
As you got these numbers after doing a report. And if you will, share a little bit with us about why you decided to do this report and what you were hoping to accomplish.
Well, thanks for that. I mean, first of all, we are in a city with nearly 1 million fellow residents who have a disability today. So, having a disability in New York, this means we're talking about our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, folks, in our buildings that we see in our communities every day. And this is an issue for so many New Yorkers because we are not operating at our full potential as a city, as an economy, if we're leaving New Yorkers with disabilities behind. So we saw this as a really urgent priority, not only as an equity issue, almost over 2/3 of New Yorkers with disabilities are people of color, but we've seen that those unemployment statistics have disproportionately hurt folks who not only have disabilities, but are also Black, Latinx as well. And we know that we need to do a lot better as a city to ensure that those employment opportunities that are coming back online as our economy recovers are able to reach those New Yorkers with disabilities who have been left out of the city's economic recovery so far.
And as you look now, you have these numbers, they're startling, of course, and very concerning. Where do you take the report and where do you go from here?
Well, I was struck by a couple of things in this research. One is that there's a huge opportunity right now. Despite, you're right, those numbers are really alarming. They should be concerning to policymakers across the city. But we also saw some real opportunities, some moments, some reasons for hope, frankly. The first one is that we're living through a sea change in how people live and work. The rise of remote work, hybrid work is here to stay. And some of the advocates that we spoke to said, we've been fighting for decades to see that kind of acceptance in our society for those kinds of work accommodations. Well, now over the past 2 years, they've become the norm. So that's a major opportunity. Now, it's not the only way that New Yorkers with disabilities want to participate in the workforce, but it's a huge shift that we should be capitalizing on right now. We're currently living through an incredible explosion of new technological innovations, things that were science fiction, frankly, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, that are now accessible to New Yorkers. Innovations in assistive technology that are able to help make so many more workplaces accessible, types of jobs, types of occupations, doable by folks with a variety of different disabilities. So that's creating the conditions for a major expansion of opportunity. And then at the same time, we're also seeing we have a really topsy-turvy labor market right now, but there's in fact a lot of hiring demand, unmet demand from businesses, and especially small employers in particular. And if we could do more to help small businesses become accessible workplaces while connecting those businesses with organizations that are helping to prepare and train New Yorkers with disabilities for jobs in a variety of different sectors, we could see a lot more employment growth.
Share with me a little bit about New York City Mayor Eric Adams. I know you have an ask of him in the process because we know that he's the catalyst for a lot of this. He's got his hands full. But as you are petitioning the mayor, what would you like to see from the mayor's office?
Sure. Well, the first thing I'd say is we've seen that in general, funding for programs and services that support employment for New Yorkers with disabilities just hasn't kept pace with the need out there. I mean, the primary program, the city-funded program that supports New Yorkers with intellectual and developmental disabilities in particular, has plunged 82%. That funding is down 82% after adjusting for inflation, over the past 20 years, from $70.7 million all the way down to $12.4 million. So that's a specific challenge that can be addressed with some additional funding. But it's more than just funding alone. It's really understanding how to leverage the system that we have today to be able to better expand employment opportunities for New Yorkers with disabilities. We have a couple of ideas from this research to do just that. One is we spoke with many different mainstream workforce development organizations out there, organizations focused on people with disabilities. What they told us was in most cases, they believe or they know that half or more of their clients are people with disabilities, but they just don't have the expertise, the training, the funding to be able to build accessibility into all of their programs and services. So we call on the mayor to create the first in the nation accessibility training challenge grant. This would be a new grant funded program to help workforce organizations build accessibility into their programs and services. And it would affect the entire workforce ecosystem in New York, not just those organizations that focus on serving New Yorkers with disabilities. But I will add, those organizations are incredibly important as well. As you can imagine, they're having real success helping New Yorkers access training, working with employers to cultivate inclusive workplaces, accessible workplaces. But generally speaking, all of those programs are operating at a really small scale, serving a few dozen people to maybe a couple hundred people a year at most. And they need a lot of support to scale up, as well as some real challenges accessing city funding, where most of those organizations that are specifically focused on serving New Yorkers with disabilities, helping them access employment opportunities, they're really not even competing for city contracts today because those contracts are just too inflexible and don't cover the kinds of they don't fund the kinds of intensive programming that those organizations see actually lead to success. So for most of them, the city dollars are 5% or less of their workforce programming, but that could change with some new support. And I think the mayor has recognized, he's spoken publicly about the need to support New Yorkers with disabilities. I think there's a real opportunity to make these kinds of investments in the years ahead.
When you have organizations out there that some may, have the mindset of wanting to do it, but I think you mentioned being able to scale up, to be able to do what they need to do to reach that mode of accommodation for persons with disabilities. What are some of the ways that an organization can actually scale up to meet the needs and embrace those with disabilities in the workforce?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think most of the workforce organizations we talk to, I think it's understandable. They feel like they don't actually have the knowledge in-house to be able to build accessibility into their services. So some of that is just around hiring needs. Organizations can't hire with the contracts that they compete for to deliver services. That's not enough to actually hire whole new staff just focused on things like accessibility, to actually pay folks with disabilities with that expertise to come in and audit their programs and services and counsel them on how to make them more accessible. That's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's a ton of work that needs to go into actually cultivating jobs in partnership with employers, educating employers that New Yorkers with disabilities are a incredibly powerful but untapped, in many cases, source of talent for their businesses. And then to be able to help those employers understand, here's how to make your workplace accessible. We have a recommendation in the report for the mayor to work with the Department of Small Business Services and the mayor's office for people with disabilities to launch a door-to-door business outreach team focused on actually working with small and mid-sized businesses to be able to implement those kinds of accessibility improvements, whether it's the physical design of their space or opportunities to integrate assistive technology so that they can actually hire more folks with disabilities to get the job done. So there's a lot of opportunity out there, but it requires that level of focus, investment, and really making sure that employers across New York City understand that there are real resources out there to be able to tap into the talent of our disabled population in New York. Such a diverse and wide-ranging population with so many skills and talents to bring to the table. And making that connection is a huge opportunity for New York, in a city where there are nearly 1 million residents with a disability, but where in the Bronx, for instance, at least prior to the pandemic, 70% of Bronx residents, working age Bronx residents with a disability, were not working in 2019. That number's only gotten worse between now and 2021. And it doesn't have to be that way. We see other cities that made more of an investment in these areas are doing better. Seattle leads the nation right now. In Seattle, that number is only about 50%, still arguably alarmingly high, but major progress compared to New York. And we've calculated that if we were able to, in New York City, match Seattle's best in the nation rate, 51% labor force participation rate for New Yorkers with disabilities, and lower the unemployment rate to meet the citywide average here in New York, well, that would mean 72,000 more New Yorkers would be employed every year, earning over $3.4 billion in new wages. And imagine the effect of that influx of earnings on communities, on neighborhoods across the whole city.
Yeah, Eli, we got to leave it there, but certainly some great information to uncover, and hopefully we'll be able to see some progress. We'll definitely double back and find out more and see if there's any progress made in the near future. Eli Dvorkin, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
All righty, Eli Dvorkin, our guest. Now, if you want more information, we encourage you to visit the website. The website is nycfuture.org. And then, of course, follow them on Twitter at NYCFuture. We do have more show. We encourage you, don't go anywhere. Open continues coming up in a few. Welcome back to the show. The ability to find affordable childcare in New York is becoming ever increasingly more difficult for parents. However, the Salvation Army is offering childcare services to families with their early learning centers. Now, the program is providing a tailored program that's helping develop children between the ages of 2 and 5. And here to speak more about that, we've got the General Secretary at Salvation Army Greater New York Division, Major Kevin Stoops. And Major Stoops, glad to have you back. And as we talk about this, it is very real, because when we talk about parents really trying to find the best care for their children, we know that upwards of dollars can be spent a month, and really affordable is not really happening in New York. Talk about the work that you're doing in trying to bridge that gap.
Yeah, we provide 6 childcare locations in New York City, right? 2 in the Bronx, 1 in Queens, and the others in Brooklyn. And these are affordable places for parents to go because it's under contract with New York City Department of Education. I think one of the key things as people return to work in an office situation coming off the pandemic is the need for not just a babysitting service or a watchfulness of their children, but an education opportunity for their children. And I'll tell you what, that's important with the Salvation Army. We want people to learn their how to learn their letters, learn their numbers, learn socialization skills. When children have been isolated for so long with just their screens, maybe they don't even know how to talk to another child. Maybe they don't know how to share toys. Maybe they don't know how to play together. Maybe they're not using their imagination. All of these components are important to the Salvation Army in their child care centers. And I think a main component as well is that we provide what we would call a safe place. It's not just a safe place physically for the child to come into, but it's a safe place for them emotionally. We're not going to let there be teasing going on or any bullying to go on. It's a safe place for them psychologically. It allows them to share their fears, express their feelings in a way that is empowering and important. And all of this goes together to begin to build the foundation for a child for their future years in school, but also their future years in society.
Yeah. So who's eligible to take part in your child care programs as of now?
Yeah, right now it's I would say that there is an enrollment process, but it's very open. So just if someone is interested in finding childcare for their child who's age 2 to 5, call up the Salvation Army. You use our website, salvationarmyny.org, and you'll be able to go through that criteria. It's probably not good for me to sit here and list out any specific criteria because it might be different for the center which you're applying to, but not cumbersome at all, not restrictive in any major way except that age. And you'll want to get your children into that, especially at this time coming out of the pandemic.
For you, what's it? Talk to me about the work that goes on in reaching people, because we know that some of the people that come through your doors are actually refugees, and the ability to meet them where they are, providing multicultural classes. I know that you do, to try to help them to bridge the gap and also to help to acclimate them into current mainstream society.
Yeah, one of the real keys of Salvation Army service is not just restricting our assistance to one little micro zone or one little area. It's really treating the whole person. So when a person comes in, let's say that it's a family, they need childcare, but maybe they're also looking for assistance with food because they're hungry or they're experiencing some financial need or gap. Salvation Army, through use of case managers, etc., will really walk that family through whatever the need is that they're expressing. One of the key ones we're seeing today, and you just said it, is refugees or coming in need of shelter, need of accessing some of the legal resources that are available in a community. So taking a family by the hand and allowing them to reach out to the agency so they can get identification, proper work documents, proper school registration documents, maybe even right up to a social security number, driver's license, things like that. And that's the kind of service that we as a Salvation Army want to do. Look at the whole person. What is the need? How can we come alongside you? Open doors for you. Is it language acquisition? Is it the ability to provide a translator so that when you go to a place, there's communication that can take place in a very meaningful way? These are all things that the Salvation Army wants to do, because it's not just about one little area of a person's life that the Salvation Army wants to come alongside. It's the whole person.
You talk about helping them learn and get acclimated, but we also know that those persons sometimes struggle in the area of food insecurity, and being able to have the basic necessities. Share with us a little bit about the wraparound services that you provide when it comes particularly to helping people with food and also even with clothing.
Yeah, Salvation Army has always had a food response to people. It's a basic need of a person's life. It's a foundational thing. If a person's hungry, they're not going to be able to learn. If a person's hungry, they're not going to be able to work. If a person's hungry, they can't critically think for addressing other needs in their life. So the Salvation Army sees that as a basic response strategy for us. And through the use of soup kitchen, grab and go food pantry, choice pantry, where a person can actually go in and choose the food that they need. These are all strategies that we have around our 38 units in the greater New York region. And so if a family just expresses that need, comes in, documented or not, doesn't matter. We want to meet the need that you have. And then once we start there, let's get you fed, let's get you resources. Then we find out what other needs do you have. And for some, it's then medical. Maybe it's getting to a clinic, so that in one of our units in Jamaica, we have a clinic right downstairs of that building that rents our space. So we're able to get them right into that clinic so they can be checked out in that way. But these are all ways that we address the needs of the whole person. We don't want to just be a Band-Aid on a person that's experienced cut. We want to be addressing and maybe even resourcing them by referral, so that they can use the whole community, have the whole community opened up to their disposal to help meet the needs of the family.
Yeah. And the work that you do can't be done alone. We know that there's a great staff that you have and volunteers. How's it going for you? Talk to us a little bit about the staff and the volunteers who work tirelessly to meet these needs.
Yeah, great. I'm glad you asked that, Daren, because at the current time, the Salvation Army has many openings, many vacancies. There's a staffing shortage. There's, I think this is being felt across the community at large, but we have many openings, and we're not getting many applicants for those job openings. This is concerning, because it usually means then someone's got to fill in double the shift or do an overtime shift. It puts a lot of pressure on the existing staff. So if there's people out there that are going to listen to this and you're interested in the kind of work that we do, maybe in a child care center or a shelter, again, contact us at the salvationarmyny.org, and you'll see the opportunities that are available. This is an important time for volunteering. I think there's people that during the pandemic have not been able to be engaged in helping people through volunteering with an organization. We would love to see you volunteer at the Salvation Army, whether that's through helping at a day camp this summer, through a food program that the Salvation Army runs. And then as we lead up into the fall and winter through the holiday program, you can help the Salvation Army by volunteering, and that's a very valuable resource to us.
Well, Major Stoops, we're going to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us and continuing the great work that Salvation Army is doing and bridging the gap for so many people across New York City. Major Kevin Stoops, our guest, and thanks again for joining us.
Daren, always great to talk to you. Thank you.
All righty. Well, guess what? If you want more information now, you can always visit their website, salvationarmyny.org, as Major said, and then also follow them on social media at Salvation Army. We want you to stay with us, because guess what? We do have more show. Open continues coming up right after this. And welcome back to the show. Bronx Community College will actually host its 44th annual Run the Bronx. Now, the run is a community health event including 10K, 5K, and a 2-mile fitness walk beginning. Now, the event was developed to promote health and fitness in the Bronx. We're pleased to have joining us and sharing more details the coordinator of Run the Bronx and director of alumni relations at Bronx Community College, Robert Whelan, and then also co-founder of Run the Bronx, the Honorable Joseph M. Ramos. And welcome both to the show. And Mr. Ramos, I'll start off with you. A good chance to see you again. This couple of challenges over the course of the last couple of years, but talk about how you're getting this event back on the ground.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Daren, for your cooperation and the years of cooperation that you extended to us for this particular event here in the Bronx. As you know, and as you know the history of the event, it started in 1978 with just a simple idea, and now it's a tradition in the Bronx. We started working hard. Robert has diligently worked with it. We did the virtual run last year, and we had tremendous participation. And this year, we're succeeding with the numbers again. So we're just so happy and so anxious to see the people out there again, because this is one event that really brings people together. And not only that, but the beauty of it is that it brings people of all nationalities, ages, etc.
Robert, tell me about this, because as we said, last year's event virtual, this time you got an in-person event. How hard was it to really gather the people back together? Were they really anxious and excited about getting back for this run?
It was funny. Thank you for having me, first of all. It was interesting to see it all, the way the people for the run loved this race. When we canceled in 2020, we canceled March 12th, and our race was going to be in the first week of May. People were contacting us and saying, listen, we want to keep it going. We want to keep the run. So in 2020, we moved to the Spirit Run, which was basically just, in general, the people that are running as they wanted to do. Last year, we did the virtual run, and even that turnout was much more expected than we got. We got a much larger expectation number than we expected there. And this year, going back live, we're happy with what's happening with the race so far. Numbers are looking good. High schools are looking good. Adults are looking good. I also have international runners coming in, which is also a plus for the race. So things are looking good. It's hard because of all the challenges with all the different regulations, all the different guidelines that are coming out every week, every month. So in that regards, it's difficult, but people want to come to this race.
Yeah. Mr. Ramos, tell me a little bit about this. As we look now, we know the race was founded by Roscoe Brown, and one who is near and dear to my heart, and of course, I know the heart of Bronx Community College. To take it from where it is to where it's been to where it is right now, it is really galvanized. And when we talk about the borough of the Bronx, we know the health challenges that we have, number 62 of all the counties when it comes to good health. But yet and still, this is an opportunity for us to improve our health, and also for people in the borough of the Bronx and across to just improve their, congenial relationships.
Absolutely. One of the things that you should also know, Daren, is that the last run that we had, we included the explorers from all the precincts in the borough of the Bronx. And you should have seen this. We had over, I would say, close to 1,000 young people from the ages of 14 to 18 participating in this event, whether they were giving out medals, whether they were giving out water, whether they were giving whatever. And then the other thing, the beauty of it was that the precinct that has the most participation in the event won the Ramos Trophy. And the 46th precinct were the ones who won the trophy. And this year they have had a tremendous challenge, because now all these kids, you should see this, Daren, all these young people getting involved in athletics, but also in the wellness program.
Well, when we talk about poor health, obviously the borough of the Bronx, 62 out of 62 in New York State counties for poor health. And when it comes to diabetes, well, the residents have an estimated 85% higher rate of diabetes than other residents across the city. So an opportunity for us to really have a healthy get together. And as I talk a little bit about this, and I want to bring Robert in on this one right here. Talk to me, because we have a vast community of people who will be participating. I know over 2,000 participants usually are attracted to come to this run. Give us a little bit more about what we can expect by way of participation.
One of the biggest things that we did that separates us from other runs, it started out as a health pavilion, and now it's become a run pavilion, because it doesn't just include physical health, but it includes mental health, and includes financial health as well, which is another issue that we've had in the Bronx with the poverty rate. So we're looking at everything from diabetes, cholesterol, heart disease, financial insecurity, food insecurity. We're looking at all these issues that are part of a health of a person, not just the physical aspect of it. So when people come to this run, there is actual run pavilion in there as well, with banks. We have Popular Bank coming with us. We have Health First coming with us. We have Bronx Care coming with us. We have other hospitals and other places that are coming in to give information out to the community, to let them know what's happening, let them know how they can improve their health, improve their well-being. It's not just physical and mental health, but we've included financial health as well.
Yeah. So for our viewers and somebody's out there that's watching, say, listen, I may want to take part in this. We know it may not be. Is it too late? Because I know that we've got a little bit more time left on the clock. The race is on May the 7th. Talk to us about what somebody can do if they have an interest.
The biggest thing we have right now, we have two fees for the race. The first one is for adults, which is $30. That entry fee ends on Thursday, April 29th. It is free for all CUNY students. It is free for all K through 12 students and free for anyone younger. That also expires on Thursday, April 29th. And after that, it's going to be $50 from the April 30th. The last day of registration is Thursday, May 5th. So they can come to our website at Bronx Community College /Run the Bronx, or you can Google Run the Bronx, it'll come up. And there's also a promo code for the runners who are of age, the younger ones, the high school students, the elementary school students, and the CUNY students to get the free promo code so they can join in the run for free.
Yeah. Commissioner Ramos, I know it's very special to you. You've literally picking up the baton and run with this ever since, Dr. Roscoe Brown transitioned, and even still every year at the helm here. Talk to me about what it is for you being a part of this and being able to spearhead and be a spokesperson for this event.
Well, one of the things that I really enjoy is, and one of the ideas that we had, Roscoe wanted to open these gates for the people in the Bronx, because he also noticed that a lot of our people never been into a college campus. And one of the things you should see the expression and the eye openings that people express when they come to Bronx community, because it's one of the most beautiful campuses that we have in the city of New York. And it's very historical as well. So they also have an opportunity to be at the highest point in the borough of the Bronx and witness, a campus that has buildings of all different kinds of shapes, because it just used to be the NYU, a school of engineering. So, but the young people really get a big kick out of coming in for the first time into a college setting here in the borough of the Bronx. And you'd be surprised how many of those young people who come to the run also come and attend Bronx Community College.
Commissioner Ramos, got to leave it there. Robert, thank you so much. Want to let our viewers know again, the race is taking place on May the 7th. You do have time to still get registered and get in there and hopefully be a part of this great event. But once again, gentlemen, it's great to see you, and great to know that this event will now be happening in person. I think it's going to be a great run for you and also for our community as well. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much there.
All right. Well, I want our viewers to know, if you want more information, don't hesitate to visit the website. What you do is go to bcc.cuny.edu and run the Bronx, and you can find out more information about this very special event. Now, we don't want you to go anywhere. We want you to continue to stay with us, because guess what? Open continues coming up right after this. Welcome back. Rising food prices are forcing New Yorkers to struggle to feed themselves and their families, to rely more on food banks as well as food pantries. Now, U.S. inflation is at its highest level since 1982, eroding consumers' purchasing power and exacerbating the food insecurity crisis that was existing before COVID-19. Joining us now to bring us more insight into this, we are pleased to have the Chief Procurement Officer of Food Bank for New York City, Bob Sylvia. And Bob, good to have you.
Thanks, Daren. Good morning.
Good morning. And give us a little insight into this here. We know that since COVID-19 hit, we saw more and more people enter into food insecurity. People who have all of a sudden became the have-nots. What's it been like for you trying to navigate through this and trying to come out of this COVID pandemic when it comes to just the area of being able to supply food?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a double increase in the amount of food that's been requested by our network. And luckily, we have a strong network of partners in the community, as well as government agencies, corporate sponsors, and donors to cope with the increasing demand. It's been a challenge.
Yeah. So for you, talk to me about the increase in the price of food. How has that directly affected you?
Well, I mean, we are purchasing food and getting donated food as well. And as you can imagine, it's not only the increase in prices, but the supply chain shortages have really put a strain on the network. We've been lucky in that we have very strong relationships. So we've been able to mitigate some of the costs as well as mitigate some of the supply chain shortages. But it's been a challenge. We've seen in some cases 30 and 40% increases in the amount of in the pricing that's we've been purchasing on our wholesale end. And a lot of the increases have been due to shipping. So shipping costs, trucking costs, the price of a container from an overseas supplier have in some cases gone up tenfold. And so we've seen that. We've been able to try to change our market to a more local based market to avoid some of those shipping costs. And we've had good luck with that. We have strong relationships in New York State, as well as support from the state government in a program called Nourish, where we've been able to work with local farms and local farmers, as well as local suppliers to try to mitigate some of those trucking costs, which has really been a big effect on the supply chain.
Yeah. When we look at what's going on, Americans on average are paying 7.9% more than last year when it comes to food. That definitely causes an increase in your doors and your traffic, because now you're seeing more and more people just simply can't afford it, and they're going to the food banks. Talk to us about how you've been able to manage and really be able to meet the needs of these people who continue to come through on a more frequent basis.
Well, you know, not only the supply, COVID-19 started this, and now we're starting to see the effects of unemployment that have not changed, where we expected there to be a change, where we may have distributed 100 million pounds of food prior to the pandemic. We started distributing 150 million pounds. We have not seen a significant drop in that. So we are still back up in the 125, 130 million pounds distributed. And yet on the other hand, we've seen an increase in donations. We've seen an increase in donations monetarily and goods. Federal plans such as the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan have also enabled more product availability, but these plans aren't permanent. So we're still, as the supply continues to level out at a significant amount more than it was pre-pandemic, we're still going to be looking at increased requests for donations. The best way to support us is obviously through a monetary donation. We're able to translate $1 into 5 meals, which is a big difference. But the food bank requirements have more than doubled in the past 2 years. It's more than doubled. We don't expect that to go down much past, you know, a 50% drop. That's it. That's all we expect. We're in one of the wealthiest cities in the world, and yet on every borough of New York, we have seen an increase in demand. Every single borough. And we've brought in new transportation. We've brought in new trucking. We've brought in doubled the amount of drivers we have delivering food. So we have been nonstop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week since this pandemic started.
Yeah, you brought me to my next point, because when we talk about New York, we're looking at, you know, one of the biggest cities in the nation, one of the largest cities in the nation, but then yet and still, everybody talks about the big city. When you see the big city taking a hit like this, what's the picture like nationwide? Because when we've got it like this, obviously this is just a microcosm of a macrocosm.
Yeah. And Daren, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know here, but you know, at the heart of food insecurity is poverty, right? It's a multifaceted systemic issue. The combination of unemployment, not just unemployment, underemployment, low wages, high living costs, they're outpacing the labor rates, and the inflating prices means food costs just aren't going to be able to keep up, right? So people who where even that as they're beginning to go back to work, they've gotten used to the pantry. They understand that the food is available to them. They need it, and they will continue to have that need even as they begin to go back to work. Nothing's changing. And as the supply chain continues to have issues, we've received word last week that there are sections of Europe that are shutting down again, that it's also creating a supply chain issue. So we're not seeing significant relief in that supply chain. And here in New York, with having just the quantity of need out there, it's a challenge.
Yeah. Where do you go from here? I mean, the question is, how do you get around this? Because if people are looking at you and you're in need and in trouble too, how do you get around it?
Well, you know what? I'm not going to categorize us as being in trouble. We've got a dedicated team that is doing really great work. And even though we've seen an increase in need, we've also seen an increase in donations. We've seen an increase in the amount of goods we bring in. People have been providing regular donations of foods and dollars. We are navigating a very difficult labor market right now. We have significant openings in positions in our warehouse, but we're working through it. We have a very dedicated team. We are not shirking from our responsibility one bit. We will continue to supply every pound, every ounce of food that we can out into the network. And as the change dictates, we will change with it. So we're not. I'm not going to say we're in trouble, Daren. We're not. We're getting the job done, and we're working very hard.
Yeah, trouble may be a bad word for me to use, but certainly I will say in more demand, because obviously a lot of people are continuing to come to food banks. And as we were talking on this show about the moratorium, with the eviction moratorium now ending, people now having to come up with more money for rent and having to pay, some people having to pay back rent. Trying to meet the basic necessities are going to be right there. Before we go, talk to us about how the general public can actually assist in your efforts.
Well, the best way to assist us is with a donation. Anything you can spare. As I talked about earlier, $1 sent to the food bank and sent to my procurement team can translate into purchasing 5 meals for a family, and that is, that's a day and a half. That's a significant amount of food. So anytime we can increase the amount of monetary donations we get, we can get more food out there. We have a lot of streams of food coming in, but obviously purchasing food is one of our strongest avenues, and supporting our operations, with a monetary donation is just going to, get us through this problem even quicker.
Yeah. Bob, Sylvia, we got to leave it there, but thank you so much for being with us and sharing. Continue the great work of the food bank. You're definitely much needed. And hopefully as we continue to move on throughout the course of the summer, that maybe things can ease up. But I know that that forecast is quite dim right now, given the fact of the inflation and all that's happening with unemployment and underemployment. But thank you for the work that you're doing, and keep your head up.
My pleasure, Daren. And remember, we're a strong city. We are going to get through this.
Oh, we are. Definitely no question about that. Bob Sylvia, our guest here, and we thank him. He is the Chief Procurement Officer at Food Bank for New York City. And we encourage you, listen, if you want more information, go visit the website, foodbanknyc.org. And because guess what? We got some more show. Don't go anywhere. Open continues coming up right after this. And welcome back to our show. As we prepare for Earth Day that is soon coming, we want to let you know several chefs have actually shared sustainability tips that are straight from their acclaimed restaurants and their home kitchens. They all share the common belief of protecting the environment and offering their guests fresh food with the highest quality ingredients. And joining me now to share a little bit more, we've got the executive chef at Green's Restaurant. Katie Riker. And Katie, thank you for being with us. And as Earth Day is approaching, talk to us about what it means for you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. At Green's Restaurant, we're based in San Francisco. So farm to table is pretty much a standard out in California. So we take it an extra mile. We're vegetarian and vegan. We don't use any meat products, and we haven't done so in 43 years, which is really exciting. I think the best way to be sustainable and support your local economy and local agriculture systems is buying local from farmers markets. And that's what we focus on at Greens. So we have a huge network of farmers that we use to keep it local and to make sure that we're supporting the agriculture in our area.
Educate our viewers a little bit, because we hear sometimes the word farm to table. And while I do know what farm to table is, somebody may not be so familiar with farm to table is. So share with us about farm to table.
Absolutely. So farm to table is really about local agriculture. So a lot of agriculture, especially in California, is really widespread. A lot of larger farms will just plant one thing and they'll reuse the soil, and they're really just trying to get as much yield from their crops as possible. But this actually isn't really great for the soil, because as you plant those same things, you kind of deplete the soil of those nutrients because you're planting the same thing over and over again. So local agriculture is a little bit better. It's smaller scale. There's more focus on heirloom varieties, which are things that may not be as high yielding that you would get in commercial agriculture, but they usually taste better. The crops are usually rotated, which means that the soil is healthier and it regenerates better. Plus you get to support local people who, just like you and me, who have small businesses. Yeah.
In this time and era, we know that we're dealing with a lot of people who have food insecurity issues and really trying to combat food insecurity. But I also know that food waste is also a great challenge that we're seeing a lot of places. Talk to us about that and what you're saying.
Sure. Yeah. So a couple things. First, one of my favorite sayings is to buy it once, use it twice. So things like shrimp shells. I know Greens is vegetarian, but that's a good example. You can buy shrimp with the shell on and save those shells, and then you can make a shrimp stock. Same thing with broccoli stems. You can use the florets in whatever you're going to use them for, and then you can either shave the stems for broccoli slaw, or you could use it in broccoli cheddar soup. There's lots of ways that you can reuse vegetables in more than one capacity, and then that would also help you to reduce your waste. Plus you get to stretch what you buy a little bit further. Another great way is to plan your menus ahead of time. So there's a lot of different cuisines that actually have a lot of through lines. You can make tacos one night with tomatoes and chili peppers and cilantro, and the very next day you could use those same ingredients with some different spices and make a curry. So you could keep it interesting while using the same amount of the same things that you've bought.
I want to talk to you for a minute, because you're out there in San Francisco doing a great work. And if you don't know, she's the executive chef at Green's Restaurant in San Francisco. But there's some Bronx ties to this. So tell me about the Bronx.
Yeah, my great grandma grew up in Pelham Bay, right off the Hutch, and my dad grew up on Edenwald Avenue. So he had moved when he was a child to Rockland County, which is where I grew up. He was in Nanuet. I grew up in New City. But I totally have memories of going to Arthur Avenue and getting ravioli and
yeah, Arthur. I love Arthur Avenue. That's my place. You can find me there all the time. And listen, when you talk about Arthur Avenue, that is one of the things that you love. The community comes and they buy local. Share with us, because the importance of buying local. That's a major way of sustainability as well. The artists of buying local.
Absolutely, yeah. So buying local, like I said, is really good to support your local economy, because you're not supporting a gigantic company or supporting small farmers. But it's also great for reducing food miles. There's not as much transportation involved in buying things that are grown locally. That also helps to reduce carbon footprint. And it's kind of nice. You get to see the same farmers at the farmers market every week, and you know that they grew those things and they picked those things. And it's a really cool way to build community also.
Yeah. So share with us a little bit about as you're the executive chef of Green's Restaurant. Share with us about Green's Restaurant in San Francisco. Thank you for coming to us all the way from the Bay Area. And tell us what you guys going on.
Sure. Yeah. So Green's was founded in 1979 by the San Francisco Zen Center. And, that was a time in the 70s where vegetarian food was not heard of. People didn't know what it was, or if they did, it was like kind of that sprout infested area of the grocery store that, people weren't really comfortable with yet. But we had a really wonderful founding chef, Deborah Madison, lots of support from other people like Alice Waters. And we just opened this restaurant and it really took off from there. We have sweeping views of the Golden Gate Bridge. We're right in the marina, which is beautiful every day. It's different. And we're just really focused on celebrating vegetables. That's what we've been about this whole time. So you won't really find impossible meats or any celebrating local agriculture. We're really interested in making sure that whatever we're putting on the plate is a fair and delicious representation of what grows locally around us.
And when we see people buying green, eating green, it's taken a new life, if you will, because we know, you mentioned before, this is something that has seen steady progression. What's it been like for you watching more and more people go green, eat fresh, eat clean, eat healthy?
It's amazing to see. It really is fantastic. I think Greens was a little ahead of its time for sure. Like we pioneered the vegetarian movement in the United States. I'd like to think that we're still leading that movement and making sure we're staying, to the roots, literally and figuratively, that we're not using processed things and we're celebrating the earth around us. But it's really nice to see people come to us having had some interest in it already. It's more common now. We still have some folks who can't believe it's vegetarian, or they think they may be missing something, and they end up leaving really surprised, which is a really great feeling for us. We're really happy that we can provide that and show people, what vegetarian's all about.
Well, as the executive chef, I know that you make sure that people leave feeling delighted and well, and giving them a new perspective. Thank you for the work that you're doing out there in promoting healthy living and healthy eating. When are you coming back this way is the big question.
Oh, I don't know yet, but hopefully soon.
Well, you got your hands full. We'll keep you busy out there. When we're in San Francisco, definitely got to look you up. Want to thank you so much for being with us, Katie Riker, who is the executive chef at Green's Restaurant. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Well, if you want more information, what I want you to do is do this. You can visit their website, greensrestaurant.com, and then also you can find them on Facebook and Instagram at Green's Restaurant. Well, we've come to the end of our show today. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us, and most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recablecast on Bronx Channel 67. Also, if you have Verizon Files, that'd be channel 2133, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. And if you want a brand new episode, guess what? You come back on Friday. My girl, Rena Valentine, will bring you the best in arts and entertainment. She'll have that Friday edition for you, and you'll be all caught up. Want to also give a special shout out to all of our viewers who are watching locally on the MNN channel, as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. As we said, that about wraps it up. I'm Daren Jaime, thanking you for joining us for this edition of Open. We'll see you back next week with a brand new episode, some new guests, and some new insight. Talk to you soon.